In this video tutorial, I want to show you a little bit more about the new rubric tool inside Blackboard Learn 9.1. First thing I want to point out is that you can access rubrics either as you are creating or editing any kind of assignment, or you can also use it with a discussion board, blog, or other interactive tool. But the place where you can look at the big picture of all the rubrics that you can choose from is going to be under Control Panel, Course Tools, and then Rubrics. Now when you're just starting, you will not have any rubrics available, so you may have to create some rubrics, which you can create either from this screen or as you're creating an assignment. Or you might be lucky enough to be able to share some rubrics with your colleagues. So the first thing I want to show you is how to import and export rubrics. I think you will find this a very useful task because even though you may have been using rubrics for years in Blackboard just by posting a rubric for the students to view, the nice thing about this is that it is interactive when you are filling out the rubric, which is pretty cool, and it automatically plugs in points into the Blackboard gradebook for you. So it works a little bit better than using your own rubrics to actually create Blackboard rubrics. So you can create a new rubric, but it's great if you could share rubrics either with colleagues this semester, and then also you can use this same method to export rubrics from one course into one of your other courses, or of course next semester when you're getting your shell ready for the next semester. So I'm going to switch over to another course here and go down here to Rubrics, and let's say I want to copy all these rubrics into my course. Whether or not I'm going to use them, it's not going to cause any problem. If I click the button next to name, it's going to select them all. If I don't want them all, I could just pick one or two. Just for this purpose, I'm going to pick just one. And I'm going to click Export. And then it's going to give me the option to export to a local computer. And then I can hit Download. And then this box shows up, and I do want to pay attention to the last couple numbers here so I'll be able to recognize it. So I'm going to remember 78 here, because when I click OK, it's just going to put it in my downloaded files. So then I need to switch back into my original Blackboard shell and import that rubric using import. So again, I have to make sure that I'm under Course Tools in the Control Panel, Rubrics, to get the option to import a rubric. And what I'm going to do is browse my computer looking for the download section and for that one that ended with 78. And notice it's a zipped folder. I don't want to unzip it. So it'll look the same whether it's just one rubric or many rubrics. You won't really be able to tell the difference here. It's just going to be one zipped folder, even if it's 4 rubrics that you've decided to export and import. So then when I hit submit, it takes just a minute to import the rubric or rubrics. And when the import is complete, you get this result screen, and you can just scroll down and click OK. And now you will see the rubric you copied over. This one is right here in your list. I do want to just give an example. All of these rubrics, they don't have to be actually deployed or used within this course, so it's okay to have ones in here that you never end up using. However, if you are using them, you can actually click on this Action Links button and view any assignments that this rubric is associated with, which is a nice trick. So that one I have not used at all, so it's kind of nice to be able to do that. If I go to this one and view associated content, it tells me, yes, that's actually been used a couple times. So the other thing you can do, of course, from the Action Links button is to just look at one of these rubrics or edit one. Copying is if you want to create a new rubric based on that. So maybe I have a separate one that's for a particular chapter presentation, so I can just copy this one, and then I get copy of chapter presentation, which then I can edit and make this a little bit different. So let's say this is a whatever multimedia presentation, and kind of base it on whatever I want. So I can make any changes to this rubric, changing the criteria names by clicking this, changing the levels of achievement, changing the points, changing the words inside here. I did notice that there's a limit of, I think, 1,000 characters inside each of these little boxes, so that is not enough sometimes. And I do want to point out that if you do not have multiple columns like this, that in fact, even in this particular case, it's better to use point range, and that way you can assign your students a wider variety of points rather than they can only earn 15 or whatever. So let's say that's 5, and then this would be 0 to 4. So for example, point range is going to be really important when there is more points than just like 2, 1, 0, for example. You need to use point range. So you can just edit rubrics as you start using them. You'll figure out which works best for you. So now you've got some rubrics to work with, but to associate them with an assignment, I mentioned before that you can either create new assignments or new interactive tools. If you use something like a discussion board, you do have to actually choose this option for the rubric to appear, and you could select a rubric for this discussion board. But you can also just simply edit an existing assignment or discussion board and add a rubric to it. And then the last thing I want to show you is what it looks like from the grade book. So when I go down here to the Grade Center and Full Grade Center, I submitted a few things as an example here. So when you're grading something that you've assigned a rubric to, you go into it the same way you always do, but the nice thing is that you can actually interactively fill out this rubric. So you can simply choose it, put comments in. As you go through, it automatically adds the points together for you down here, so 14, but you can override it too. So if you have some reason to, you can do that. There's another box for overall feedback. When you hit save, it puts the points in there for you, and you even have one more box for feedback. So that is what really is the beauty of using the rubrics, is being able to interactively fill them out. And then of course when the student goes to view their own grades, they will be able to view the comments you made in the rubric and all of the things you chose from the rubric. So the other thing I want to show you is that you can actually assign a rubric to a brand new empty column that is not associated with something a student would turn in. So for example, I've done that with participation. And let's see, where did that go? Here it is at the very end. So what I did is when I created this, I just attached a rubric to it. And I can have the students view it, which I think is important. And so this is the way you would do it if you had a rubric, but the students weren't actually turning anything in. So class participation is a good example. You can still use a rubric for grading class participation. So I made that one change in there. So then when I go in to actually grade someone, even though they haven't turned anything in, I still have the opportunity to fill out that rubric with their participation. So that's the very basics of working with rubrics in Blackboard.